Top Thrill 2 is the vastly reimagined Intamin Stratocoaster that originally opened as Top Thrill Dragster in 2003 before being redone by Zamperla in 2024. It opened for about a week that year, but the ride has seemed fairly reliable since it reopened again in 2025. It opened right in the middle of Cedar Point as the tallest and fastest coaster in the world before being outdone by the now defunct King Ka just 2 years later. Due to a major accident on the ride in 2021, it was closed for years, and Cedar Point took that opportunity to try and improve the ride and its reliability issues. That seemed to fail in 2024 when the ride was unable to operate more than a week into the season, and it was probably the biggest reason why Six Flags didn't do the same to King Ka and tore it down later that year. Since 2025, however, the ride has seemingly run a lot better, and I can attest it was actually more reliable than Millennium Force during my visit to Cedar Point this year. The main problem in 2024 was the ride's structures swayed and vibrated too much during the ride's multiple passes up and down the top hat. The park decided to fit tuned mass dampers that basically produces a frequency that counteracts the oscillations or vibrations produced by the train going over that section of track. They can be seen on either side of the top hat supports just before it goes vertical, and has seemingly made the ride much more reliable in the process. So obviously this ride has a pretty ridiculous history, but the ride itself is probably even crazier, especially for someone like me who had not ridden anything like this before. Top Thrill 2 sports a more Formula One style theme around the ride's plaza, and like a few of their other big coasters, has lockers for stuff in your pockets before even entering the queue line. The line itself is pretty bland, and you can't see much of the ride from it, but that's pretty understandable due to the accident that happened in 2021, where someone was severely injured while waiting in line. The trains are also very different from the original Dragster, but still very comfortable with just a lap bar, very similar to the ones on Velocicoaster that give plenty of room for airtime. The stats, as previously mentioned, are some of the best in the world, with a height of 420 feet, speed of 120 miles per hour, and a track length of 3,422 feet. Now we got stats out of the way, let's see how it rides. Top Thrill 2 begins with an F1-like countdown, with the lights not only turning on and off in front of you, but also on the top hat itself, which looks really cool at night. You then have an initial launch of around 70 miles per hour that only probably gets you up the third of the way up the top hat before being launched backwards at around 100 miles per hour up the newly added 400-foot tall spike, which is absolutely mental in the back row, and giving riders some crazy sustained floater airtime. You then plunge back down towards the station again and pass under a really tight head chopper and finally reach the 120 miles per hour required to go all the way up the top hat. The wind in your face in this moment, even when you're not in the front, is also completely insane. As you reach the top, especially on the left side of the train in the back, you are then absolutely whipped out of your seat, heading back down due to the spiral before reaching the final brake run. Top Thrill 2 was a ride I was absolutely pumped to ride, and it absolutely delivered. It is probably one of the craziest experiences I've ever done in my life, and something I think everyone should do at some point. I can't speak to if it's better than the original Dragster since I never rode it, but I suspect I would probably like this ride a little more due to the added ride time. The original was only a little over 20 seconds, and now it's closer to a minute, which I think is a big difference when you wait over an hour. There isn't a ton of airtime compared to Maverick or Steel Vengeance, which is probably why I slightly prefer those two at the park, but the launches on this ride are some of the best I've ever done, just due to their sheer speed. They're not the punchiest for sure. Accelerator at Knott's is probably my favorite single launch for that reason, but the sensation of speed is phenomenal. The ride is also glass smooth and probably has the best trains in the park too. Now, as I mentioned before, the ride gets some pretty massive wait times, but I do think it's worth an hour or even two for your first ride. I would still probably suggest doing Maverick first at Cedar Point, but if you haven't done this yet, it's certainly worth an early morning ride. A night ride on this is also fantastic, and I would highly recommend that, although it won't save you as much time in line. Top Thrill 2 is still the tallest and fastest in the country, but those stats back up an equally fantastic ride that is a must ride at Cedar Point that is easily in my top 10. Be sure to subscribe for more content and be on the lookout for more coaster reviews and other theme park videos in the near future.